Joining us now is Eric Mandel, Director of the Middle East Political Information Network. And Eric, for those nearly 300,000 people who have gone either towards Jordan or towards the Israeli border or to Lebanon, don't they face possible retribution if they now try to go back into Daraa as the regime tries to figure out who was supporting the regime?
I think every civilian who's a Syrian civilian would be worried about Assad. Assad has killed 500,000 of his own people. So the Jordanians are not allowing any of the refugees in. Israel's not allowing any of the refugees in. And so we know how ruthless Assad could be. But I think the picture of Daraa is just the beginning of the next stage of the potential for a great northern war that's going to be happening up there. We need to just take a step back and we think about what was 7 years ago and what's today. We have a situation where Assad is beholden to Russia, Iran, the popular mobilization units, the Shia militias, Hezbollah, and they are all entrenched there. Assad is a weakened power, but he's still ruthless. It's a tremendous humanitarian crisis where you have literally 320,000 people who have been forced from their homes just in the last month, besides the at least 8 to 10 million people internally and externally displaced. So it's a huge humanitarian disaster. But really at the end stage of all of this, if the world can come together, you really want to bring back the Syrian refugees eventually back to their homeland in Syria. And can you really do that with Assad in power and the nature of the way he treats human beings?
Well, is the silver lining in all of this that at least the regime has stopped the heavy bombardment of southern Syria, so perhaps at least the argument could be made by the international community, okay, the fighting has stopped, now allow the United Nations or aid agencies into southern Syria to help in terms of giving the refugees the aid they need?
Well, we hope that they will allow them in. We've seen other situations in Syria during the civil war where civilians have been used as pawns. So we're hoping for that. You have to remember that Daraa was really one of the deconfliction zones that the Syrians were never supposed to go into. The Russians had promised that they would not be going into this zone. Everybody seems to have forgotten that. That was earlier this year. And that was part of America outsourcing our national security interests to Russia and over the last 2 administrations. And so a lot of this is a consequence of us abandoning the region and nobody else really wanting to take ownership from it. President Obama had said that he thought this was going to be Russia's quagmire. It's Vietnam. As it turned out, Russia is the winner here. Russia has now, because of supporting Assad, he has ports in Latakia and Tartus. The Iranians are going to have a warm weather port in the Mediterranean. So the situation here, when we look compared to 7 years ago, when Israel had 40 years of quiet on this border, this is not a quiet border, and we have all types of potential for problems, and humanitarian is unfortunately just one of the problems.
Eric Mandel, Director of the Middle East Political Information Network. Eric, thanks as always for coming on. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.